With YouTube attacking alternative media, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon for just $1 per month. Link below. Star Wars spin-off movies are going to be the rage for a while. We know that with the release of Episode 9 in 2019, that it's going to bring about the end of the Skywalker saga, and that's fine. That's totally fine. Give us a solid, proper conclusion to that, and I will be happy, even with the fumbles of most of the plot of The Last Jedi. But I am very curious to see whether or not the Obi-Wan movie gets made. And now what we're seeing here is this rumor, and this is strictly a rumor, that Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi spinoff could be filming as soon as next year in Belfast. And this has been plastered around the internet. I wanted to talk about it because of what the rumor stems from, that I just find to be very, very, very fascinating. Now, it says that rumors are spreading that a galaxy far, far away could be coming to the Emerald Isle near you next year, as Disney and Lucas are apparently planning to shoot a Star Wars film in Belfast. Now, the Belfast Telegraph reports that Jar Jar Binks creator George Lucas visited in November 2017 to check out a number of locations. And now rumors are swirling that the Bearded One has given his approval for the House of Mouse to film there. Well, there's a couple things with that. One, they don't care what George Lucas thinks at all. We already know this. We already know they took some elements from what he was working on with this new trilogy, and they kind of tweaked them a little bit into this movie, but they also kind of ultimately changed the vision of Luke for the final trilogy that Mark Hamill has talked about. So they don't care what George Lucas has to say. They don't give a shit what George Lucas has to say. And so here they're saying, like, well, they're going to send Lucas to Belfast in order to scout locations for an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. You know, I mean, The Last Jedi, with all its problems, still pulled in over $1.3 billion. I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is going to sit there and be like, yeah, let's see what George has to say about this. I don't think they care. And I honestly don't necessarily think George Lucas cares anymore. I really don't. It's also being reported that the staff at Paint Hall Studios have been told to expect the Star Wars crew to turn up in and around the Titanic Quarter after filming on Game of Thrones is done and dusted, which will be very, very, very soon. A 2019 filming schedule could mean Star Wars Episode 9, but people are pointing to the project being an unannounced spin-off, reportedly rumored to be focusing on Obi-Wan Kenobi, which could be the 2020 Star Wars movie, which is true. Right now, we don't have anything lined up for 2020. We know that there are movies coming. Obviously, we're going to get 1 or 2 new Star Wars movies a year until, I would argue, the end of time or nuclear warfare destroys our entire country or world. But yeah, they're going to be coming, and we know that you got the Game of Thrones spinoff. There are those guys working on a spin-off series. So a series of films, not a trilogy, a series of films that they're going to be writing and adapting. You've got the Rian Johnson trilogy. Those are the 2 setups right now that we absolutely positively know. And otherwise, it's up in the air. And people really want to see this, you know, Obi-Wan movie. It says, we wouldn't take this as an absolute, and not only because that's such a Sith thing to do. Although we don't know what kind of story the Kenobi movie would tell, Ewan McGregor's age means it would likely be set during Ben Kenobi's exile on Tatooine, which has always been filmed in desert locations rather than a stage. And then it goes on to say, even if the studio did use scenes that took place in Star Wars elsewhere, they've always shot in Pinewood. So here's the thing: is going and shooting this kind of movie, you know, a Western, an Obi-Wan Western, which is essentially what the rumor is at this point. You know, are we going to get an Obi-Wan movie? Are we going to get an Obi-Wan trilogy of films? I would argue that if the first one does well, we would probably get more. I mean, hell, even in the contract for Rogue One, there was you know, clauses in there for the characters about getting you know, sequels and shit. Given the ending of Rogue One, I don't think that's going to happen. But ultimately, you know, anything could go down, right? And anything could happen. So if they are working on this movie, which I do feel that after Rogue One and Solo and everything else, they are clearly working on this kind of story, it probably will come out in 2020. We have heard reports recently that Ewan McGregor has been bulking up. He's been training for something, and we don't quite know what that is yet. And if it's him playing Obi-Wan and this kind of grittier Western take on the character, that could be... it could be very fascinating. And I really do hope that we get more information soon. They were supposed to announce... oh, no, wait. They were supposed to announce like a new movie in January. I kept thinking, like, what is this new movie? That was the whole Game of Thrones thing. Those guys coming over. So We may not get any information on this until probably, maybe not even Comic-Con, but no, there's no D23 this year, I don't think. Maybe Star Wars Celebration will have it. But ultimately, we'll find out information as time goes on, especially if Ewan McGregor starts really bulking up and getting out there, maybe growing out his hair. People will pay attention. And I guess ultimately when that happens, we'll all just know a lot more.